We would like to acknowledge that the episodes in this series are produced on the traditional unceded lands of the Coast Salish peoples, which includes the territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. We thank them for allowing us to be their guests.
So what ended up happening was, like I told you before, I originally got my degree in business education.
Sure.
So the founder and president of VAFF, Barbara Lee, was actually, she graduated with me from UBC. So we were in the same department, but interestingly enough, she actually did not pursue a career in teaching. She actually went completely different. I pursued a career for almost 10 years in teaching and then transitioned. And I had bumped into her at one point, and she had invited me to VAFF. And this was, I want to say, about 8 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I had never heard of VAFF prior to that.
Yes.
And yet, we just completed year 26.
I know.
Isn't that sad?
We can talk about that.
Yeah. So anyway, I didn't know about this, and she said, "Oh, come to the festival, come, da 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 da." I said, "Okay, sure, that sounds like a lot of fun." So I started attending, and in about, I think, 2 years prior to the pandemic, I realized how much of a momentum things were taking on, and how much needed it is too, right? Having a platform for the underrepresented Asian diaspora, right? It's
Absolutely.
Because the mainstream media, we didn't see a lot of people that looked like us, especially in a leading role or in a positive role.
Yeah.
And now it's changing in the last few years, but definitely not before that. And so I really enjoyed it and all that. And just before the pandemic, she approached me and said, "Hey, we're looking for a new festival director. I know your background. You have a business background. You're very organized. You also, you're in the acting industry, so you understand the acting industry. Would you consider this position?" And it's completely voluntary. And I said, "I don't know. I need to think about it." And I spoke to a lot of people, and the comment was, "Oh, it's an amazing thing to do, but," the big caveat, "it's going to be a lot of work."
Both Susie and I think this is a fabulous thing.
Fantastic.
And I was amazed at the number of films and the number, particularly of young filmmakers and young women.
Yeah.
As
that's
well.
what we're really focusing
That's
on.
a great little wave coming along there, and I think that's terrific.
Yeah, no, and we're always very cognizant of that.
Yeah.
And we've really been pushing. But yeah, no, I definitely have a lot to talk about.
Sure.
And, this is my year 2 as a festival director.
Okay.
So huge change since I've come on, just because I don't know, I have a very different vision from how things have been, and so I'll explain all that to you.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, let's go back and start in the cradle.
Yeah, in the cradle. My background is I am originally from Korea, South Korea. I found out about 6 years ago that I'm actually quarter Japanese. Because I didn't know my birth mother. I didn't realize, so there's a lot of history back there. But anyway, at the end of the day, that's sort of what it was. I had no idea that my mother who raised me wasn't my birth mother. So that's a huge testament to my mother, right?
Yeah.
And so when I came here, with most or not all, but majority of the Asians, the aspirations that are sort of ingrained into us is that we need to be doctors, lawyers, and
Sure.
stuff like that. I ended up becoming a high school teacher, and I was teaching business education and computer programming. So I didn't deviate too far from my mother's wishes. And the reason why I'm only mentioning my mother is my father passed away when I was 4. And so,
Right, yeah.
And so my mother raised me on her own. An amazing, strong woman.
Bravo,
Yes.
bravo.
Well, no, also too because she was much older in that I have a brother who's 15 years older than me.
Uh-huh.
So a huge generation gap. And my mother was definitely a pioneer in her times. Like she was the only female graduate from her university in herbal medicine out of 200 students and all that. Like,
Wow.
yeah, no, just amazing woman. Like she certainly paved the way for, her generation of people. But anyway, so going back to that, so I became a high school teacher. My mother's plans were to have me sent back to Korea, going to an arranged marriage and all that stuff. So I kind of kiboshed her plans. Ended up going, you know what?
So when did they say that to you, or your mom say that to you? And did you say
Oh no! All throughout my entire childhood.
It was just what it was going to be.
Yeah. No, there was no end of or buts. Like this is your path. This is what's going to happen. So just deal with it, right? And it wasn't. I don't know. I don't necessarily want to use the expression "tiger mom," but at the same time, my mother was very hard. But mainly because she was also a single mother, right? Yeah. And unfortunately, with the Korean culture at that time, there was a lot of stigma behind a single parent, in the sense that a lot of people felt that there was a bit of a that we're inferior in some way as a child being brought up by a single parent. And so that was something my mother was sort of trying very hard to battle. And so she wanted the best for me and made sure that I succeeded, whatever that word success may be. Traditionally, success in Korea was you went through a very notable university, got your degree, and got married to a very notable family, right, as a woman, and then carried on the legacy as a mom and all that stuff.
And you were a doctor on the side.
Yeah, well, no, at that time it wasn't, that expectation wasn't there, but she certainly wanted me to get a degree that was so-called appropriate and acceptable by the upper class families in Korea, right? Which would be technically like home economics, music. Those were the traditional ones, right? And teaching wasn't so far off either as a female teacher. So I did go into teaching, but business. So I taught high school, grades 8 through 12. And when I started teaching, I said, you know what? I think I'm going to stay behind and start teaching.
Now, is this in Korea?
Or no, this is all in Canada. Yeah, no, I moved here when I was like 7.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Okay.
And so I was here all my life, but I was raised very traditionally just because of the generation difference as well. Yeah. And I graduated from UBC, education and everything, and I thought, okay, I'm going to stay. I finally sort of felt a sense of, I think I could do this on my own. I have a bit of earning power. Prior to that, I have to say, I think in not having the monetary sort of security is what really prevents a lot of us from following our own path.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
And I just wasn't bold enough to venture out that way. Yeah. So when I told my mom, I'm not going to proceed with your plans, but I am, continuing as a teacher. This is what I'll do. And it's like, she wasn't too happy, but I think she was okay with it. Right. So I stayed, I started teaching. I taught for almost 10 years.
Where did you teach?
I taught at Niwa Secondary.
Okay.
Right.
Cool.
So as I said, I taught business education 8 through 12 as well as computer programming. Okay. So I had the gamut of students and age range, and because business and computer programming, they're all electives. So I had quite challenging students as well. Mm-hmm. But in the end, it's obviously I stuck with it long enough because it was rewarding, and I did find it very rewarding in that some students came back and said, you really made a difference.
Oh, sure.
Right. Yeah. And so those are the little sort of highlights that exactly that you sort of glom onto and go, okay, maybe this is worth it.
Right? It is. It's great.
And so I did that for almost 10 years, and then I left to have kids. Right? And so when my kids became a little bit older, I was thinking about, what am I going to do? Because I really did like the idea of being home when they came home, right? Whether it was from, kindergarten or, because they never went to preschool, they went to kindergarten and then grade 1 and onward.
Right.
And so at the time, my son was playing hockey, and we were at the hockey arena, and one of the little boys, the mom was an agent. And so she sort of approached me and said, because I have a son and a daughter, so my daughter was younger, and she approached me and said, wow, I think you should have your daughter on TV, like for commercials. And I thought, okay, well, somebody had mentioned that before, but I was too lazy to go pursue it. And I thought, well, if someone's literally knocking on my door, why not, right?
Yeah.
So I was in the process of signing her up, and she calls me and she goes, I think you should do it too. And it's like, okay, well, I'm not doing anything. So I started that, I signed up, and then simultaneously, I'm fluent in Korean as well.
Okay, yeah.
And so I decided to do freelance interpreting for a non-for-profit organization.
I read that, yes, I read that.
Right. And so I thought, okay, well, I'll do this. Because the nice thing is you could pick and choose, right? You're not fixed to certain times. If you're not available for this day, you just let them know. And that's what it was. And I thought, great, I'll do that. Ironically, my kids didn't get the acting gigs as much as I did, mainly because my kids were, like, for their age, they were a little bit too big, right, in terms of height.
Right.
And, as you know, in TV land for kids, it works better if you're older and really petite.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And so...
If you're like 40 and look like you're 3,
exactly.
you're going to do okay. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Your grandson sounds like he might be on the path to that, right? But anyway, so it just so happened that we just started. I ended up, going into commercials. Had no idea what to do. Was sent for an audition. And
so you'd never studied theater or acting or any of that kind of stuff?
Never. My background was in business and computer programming.
Right into the cold end of the swimming pool.
I know, exactly. Forget about dipping your toe in. It's just like, take a leap, right? And so I got sent in for my first audition, came out of it feeling like, oh my gosh, what am I getting myself into? I just felt so dumb, right? Because there was no preempting of, what to expect, no nothing. So talk about going in cold turkey and just like, okay, well, and the thing is, I don't know about you, but starting out, I took everything so personally.
Oh, sure.
Right?
Sure.
And I just and I guess over the years you sort of become thick-skinned, right? But prior to that, it was like, oh my gosh, like, it was me personally, and I just so it was a bit of, it was a little bit difficult to get over initially.
Yeah.
But I sort of kept with it, and then after, I think, 3 years into it, I actually, for a while there, was known as the Queen of Commercials, because I was booking a lot of commercials. I even flew to London, England at the time.
Whoa, get out of here!
Yeah, for 10 days, and then I came back and they made a bit of an error because some of the scenes they wanted to put online, and there was an interview that took place, and they loved how the interview went, and they used my interview as a demo. In the process, they accidentally deleted the audio, so they flew me in again for 3 days just for that.
Man.
Right. So it's like...
come on, shake hands, because I want to get some of that magic. That's really, really great.
Well,
that's
as I said, I was the queen of...
I've never been anywhere.
Oh, really? Okay.
Nowhere. I've been to Lethbridge. That was it.
Woohoo!
That's it. That's the only place.
But anyway, so that started happening, and then, into the career... And at the time, my agent, as lovely as she was, commercials make money, and you know that, right? Unless, for TV and film and features, unless you have a significant role, you're not making that much.
Yeah.
So commercial land was wonderful. I was making money from my agent, and then she decided to move on. I got picked up by another roster that she had sold to, and once again, I was making her money. So when I was talking about transitioning into TV and film, she was not very encouraging. And then what was really discouraging too is that I get sent out to these auditions for TV and film, with no prep, major roles, and I'm just like, what do I do?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So eventually I changed agencies, and the agency and the agent that I'm with right now are very, very supportive, and they're great about giving feedback. But
do you want to give them a plug? Do you want to say that?
Principal's Talent,
okay, yeah.
with Sean Burrows,
okay,
right?
good.
It's a boutique agency, Yes, definitely.
okay.
And
Let's all raise a glass and give a
yes,
round
and they're
of applause.
amazing. They're really amazing, and it's a very small knit agency, but you know they're really there to support you and you know try and get you what you need to get, and I asked for feedback, and my agent's been amazing about that. Right?
Yeah, that's good.
And
Yeah.
so that's worked out really well. And in the meantime, I decided, well, you know, maybe I should take some classes. So I did some classes, but it's through like the Vancouver Acting School, like you know part-time classes and whatnot, and. Dan Bacon, I don't know if you know him, but he's a local actor, but also is an instructor and all that. He was very, very supportive in my journey in that it was basically, you know, audition for a TV and film was the class, right? Because otherwise I'd have to commit to a whole like, you know, term or semester and, you know, family and all that. It wasn't that easy. So I'd be doing this, you know, once a week. I can't remember what for a couple months or whatnot, and a lot of times it was very much about once we started progressed to the next stage, because I stuck with the program quite a bit and went back again and again, and he then had an advanced class. It was about, well, what is it that you want to work on, you know, what do you want to get out of it, so he was really trying to tailor things for us, which I found was amazing and very, very helpful. And so that was sort of my journey. But, you know, I had mentioned to you earlier about, you know, the agent said to me, oh, you should do it too. Part of the reason why I actually agreed to that was many, many years ago, before I came to Canada. Like I said, I came to Canada when I was 7. When I was about 4, my mother, who was a herbal doctor, one of her patients was a very well-known Korean actress. And she saw me, and I guess I was very good at mimicking and parroting things. And she said to my mom, she's like, you know, you should get her in front of the camera. And so my mom sort of jokingly said that to me. And of course I'm 4, and it's like, what do I know? I said, no. And so when I told my mom this opportunity, she looked at me and she goes, oh my gosh, it's like come full circle. Maybe it was meant to be. And so
my parents were terribly worried when I started doing theater and acting. There was no indication that this would ever happen.
Oh, okay.
When I was young, and I came up here to go to grad school, and they were like, oh, you know, he's after grad school, I was like, and he's with this theater company, and they make $40 a month, and you know, what's he gonna do, and I don't know where he lives and what he's eating. And then as soon as I came on TV, I got a part in a ABC Movie of the Week.
Oh, nice.
Nice little part. And it was about a 2-week gig.
Oh,
you know,
okay.
It was back in the days when
That's substantial.
you could have a small part and end up being in the movie for 2 or 3 weeks. And suddenly my mom just went bam, and it was like, you know, and she was giving me advice. She was giving me like career advice, you know. It was like, you know. It was
that's
great.
so cute.
Yeah,
That's
she
so
just
cute.
changed.
That's amazing. Yeah.
From then on, it was like, where will we put the Oscar? Sure.
So, you know, transitioning into TV and film, and then I had an amazing opportunity to be on stage. And it just happened by chance. And like, you know, in the past before pandemic, we all used to be in the audition room, as you know. And with myself being, you know, of Asian background, there's only a handful of us that would always be called into the audition room.
It's always the same
people,
same
exactly.
5 people.
Exactly, whether it's the age group or the ethnicity, whatever, right?
Yeah.
And so I was there, and I was talking to one of the actors, and I was like, "Oh, so what's new?" And he's like, "Oh, you know, I'm actually, you know, getting ready for a play." Kim's Convenience. And so this is what had happened was Kim's Convenience, as you know, was originally started in out east in Toronto as a stage play, and then it got syndicated and went to TV. So when it went on to TV, just prior to that, it got re-released on stage again, but certainly not the same cast. And so we started off literally far west coast. So our play was going to be at Chemainus.
Right.
On Vancouver Island. And so he was telling me all this, like, oh, wow, you know, that's amazing. And he goes, you know, actually, we haven't, you know, they haven't cast anyone for Umma. You should audition. And I was like, I know nothing about stage. Like, I have no idea what to do. And he's going, oh, you'll be fine. And I'm going,
I love how people say that.
I know exactly.
Nothing to worry about.
Exactly. It's like,
Yeah,
you'll be
it's
fine,
okay.
just go. And I'm going, okay. So, I reached out to the casting there, and I said, okay, I'll try this. And I was just so worried for so many reasons, right? I went, and the feedback, because I think for me, what I was really worried about was whether or not my voice would carry, right? Just because stage is a total different ball game.
Yeah.
And so I was very nervous about it. I actually, when I was there was another member that was being auditioned, and actually it was for the role of John, the son.
Yeah.
And so the director said, would you mind playing off of each other? And it's like, okay, we'll try it and we'll give it a go. And then the next thing you know, I'm being cast. And off I go to Chemainus. And the funny thing is, I have never left home in my entire life, like literally. Like, I went from my mom's home and got married, sort of thing. And so I went to Chemainus, lived like a university student for 2 months, like between 1 month of rehearsal and 1 month of stage actual production and all that. And it was really intense. It was a lot of fun, learned a lot, but it was like, wow. We did 37 shows in 4 weeks, I think.
Sure.
Yeah, we did like 8. It was 8 show weeks with 2 days off, right?
Or 8 shows a week.
Yeah, and with 2 days off, right? So it was like intense. I'd never done that. I was paranoid.
2 matinees.
2 matinees, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, I think we may have even done 3. But I'm sitting there being completely paranoid, thinking that I was going to get sick or lose my voice, and there's no backup, right? It's like and it's not like, oh, cut, we'll redo, right? And the scenes, my scene wasn't big, but it was very much an integral part of the story. And so if I was absent, they couldn't do the story. So I was so paranoid about the whole thing. But we managed to do really well. We did change it a little bit in that I don't know if you know much about Chemainus.
I've been there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the clientele there is a little bit different from other stages. So there is a bit of a sleepy town. It's the theater that pretty much keeps the entire town afloat. And they have like dinner theater, it's sort of package that you go for dinner and then theater if you like. And they would have bus loads of audience coming.
Right.
And that's what we do. And so the clientele was also a bit older.
Yes.
And so that we have to have an intermission, broke it down. So we sort of changed the story, not so much change the story, but in terms of how we transitioned the story a bit, because traditionally the stage plays is like sort of one act sort of thing. It just goes all the way through.
Right. So you put a little.
Yeah. So the intermission was done very differently.
Yeah.
But it worked out really well. Yeah, it was an amazing
So are you
experience.
going to do that again?
I would love to. I actually was approached for another stage, but I had to turn it down because I've been fighting joining the union.
Oh yeah.
The reason being, because I was doing a lot of commercials, and a lot of the commercials were non-union.
A lot of the commercials are still non-union, but the theater, you can still be an equity member.
But this is the situation. So I have done obviously other jobs that are union, and the way it's been in the past is you just pay a fee, right? A permit fee, and then every subsequent one throughout the year it goes up.
Yeah.
Well, they've just now changed the policy.
Yeah.
So what happens is after X number, you're in.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
Right.
Okay.
And they're trying to do it so that it becomes more fair to everyone. But it's always two sides to every story, right? And I know some people aren't too happy about it. So anyway, at the end of the day, my agent was saying my fiscal year for me ends in February, and so because I was slated to be in another show, because I have a recurring role on A Million Little Things.
Okay, yeah.
And so he's going, this is what it is. I think for the time being, let's just hold off on other things. So given that cue, I had to go and turn around and say, you know what, I can't do the stage.
Yeah. So you're doing well now. You got a recurring part. You're doing
Oh,
well.
yeah, no, okay, so
you're going out for bigger things.
bigger things. So it is
Yeah.
slowly starting to happen, but I have to say, this all started with what you call it, Parasite and Crazy Rich Asians. Okay.
Right.
And since Parasite and K-pop and K-drama, all of a sudden Koreans are the wanted.
Squid Game.
Yeah, and Squid Game for
Yeah,
sure, right?
yeah, yeah.
So now it's just like I get a lot of parts that are actually specifically for Koreans.
I think this is really fun. I think it's great that as an Asian actor, you don't have to know karate. You know.
I do know Taekwondo though.
I know you, but you don't have to.
That's right.
You know,
That's right.
it's
Exactly.
not a requirement.
Exactly.
And I think that's a wonderful thing.
Oh, I am very excited about
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
The fact
yeah.
that the opportunities are starting to slowly
And
happen.
it's really great for here,
Oh, for sure.
for Vancouver.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
I mean,
You turn around the corner and it's like, wait a minute. It's
hello.
like, yeah.
So
Exactly.
yeah, it's terrific.
No, I am really thrilled about that, and I just feel really blessed that it's slowly starting to happen. You know, we all get a little bit impatient, but we have to pay our dues. So just, you know, going back to my recurring role, what's really interesting is it's for a million little things. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the program. It's in season 5, and
What?
what's interesting is I actually auditioned right from the get-go. And I didn't get it because the age wasn't my age at all.
Right.
They wanted someone much older. And
Okay.
I sort of got it, and it's like, okay, so they actually cast someone in the US, because it's a US production, and they had that person flown in, had her appear in an episode and whatever. And it just the logistics of everything, it didn't quite work out. And so season 2, I get auditioned again for the same part, but a different name. And I'm going, oh my gosh, I think I auditioned exactly the same scene like 4 times to put it at the end. I said to my agent, I said, it's the same. Do you really want me to audition again? And so at the end he goes, yeah, forget it. So season 2, actually they brought me in. And because I'm supposed to be, my character is Grace Park's mom.
Okay.
And
yes,
so
right,
Grace
yeah.
Park and I aren't, like our age gap isn't that much,
Right.
It's actually just under 10 years.
Right.
And so what they did was they tried to age me with, you know, paint and makeup.
Sure. Yeah.
It didn't translate very well on camera,
Yeah.
right? It still didn't quite pick up the vibe. And so my scene for season 2 was just a small scene, and it really, at the end of the day, wasn't really relevant,
Right.
was cut out. So I
Right.
thought, okay, well, that's done. And then season 3 rolls around, and I get called back. And this time they decide they're going to make me look legitimately like in my 70s. So what they did was they actually did...
Freeze dry you or
no,
something.
no. So they did. So this new type of makeup. It's like latex,
Oh yes.
but it's
yeah.
a better version of it.
Yeah.
To a point where when you put it on, like it's
The
seamless.
wrinkles and-
Oh no, yeah. So no, the whole face.
Yeah.
Anything that's exposed,
Yeah.
my hands, whatever, they put it on and they have to dry it. So I'm in the makeup chair for 4 hours getting ready.
Wow.
Yeah, and so
wow. So
my-
you're in overtime before lunch.
Oh yeah. Well, no, my call time just comes really, really early. So they take my hair because I've got long hair and dark hair. They stick it into a sock. And they put hard gel. They paint it, and then they put this. I have a very like a little pixie cut wig.
Wow.
Short
Wow.
wig. Yeah, and
Wow.
so I look completely
What a
different.
job.
I know.
Wow.
It takes another 2 hours almost to take everything off at the end too. But
Those things are pretty fascinating for an actor to go through.
It is.
And I'm sure for you, you know, that's probably the first time, right?
It was.
Big, huge makeup thing.
exactly. You know, this particular thing, for me, given this opportunity to, you know, be this character who's beyond my age,
Yeah.
I really was very thankful to have this opportunity because as an actor, you're really getting to play the gamut, right? I mean, even in Kim's Convenience, because my character was supposed to be older as well.
Yeah.
So I really, you know, had the opportunity to do that. And just, like for me, and the auditions I get, I have to laugh sometimes. I get auditions ranging in age from about 35
Yeah.
to about 75.
Yeah.
Like that's the gamut. And I'm thinking, my goodness, I get my own age.
It's so weird the way they treat you. You know, people have an image of you.
Yeah, there's a stereotype.
It has nothing to do with you.
No,
it has nothing to do with
No,
you.
but for me, because it's so broad,
Yeah,
right? The age range is so broad. It's like I'm sitting there going like, where do I fit?
Every now and then they land on you. You know?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, she looks like this. No, she looks like,
Yeah.
But I mean, even the whole age thing. In commercials, like for example, I had children when I went into commercial land, right?
Right. Yeah.
They never ever cast me as a mom. They never saw me as a mom. They always did like, the CEO, the doctor, the clerk, whatever. And then now they're casting me as the mom of like younger kids. And my kids are so much older now, right? But I'm just thinking, okay, whatever works, right?
Hey, we're prisoners of what we are.
No, exactly. and I'm thankful, but at the same time, I also know that because I don't necessarily read my age, I'm also missing out on certain things as well.
Oh,
right?
sure.
But
sure.
it is what it is.
Sure.
I'll appreciate it later on in life, but at the same time, it's like,
No, it's really helpful for an actor to be miscast a few times.
Yes.
To play somebody that they would never ever
Definitely.
do. It really, you do grow that way. I've never in movies and TV played a scientist.
Oh, okay.
Or a white. I rarely play. I was always a blue collar guy or a cop.
Okay.
And that was the way I was just pegged by people.
Right.
And I was either your mechanic or your plumber or a cop.
Right. And then they just have a preconceived notion of what you should fit
It's
into.
just what you look like. It's what people think you look like, what cops look like. I played every possible kind of cop.
There you go. There you go. So you know the law, right?
Yeah, I know the law. And you get, actually it's weird, you get to hang around with the cops.
Yeah, of course.
They've got a technical advisor.
Right, of course.
Yeah. Every now and then I'll be a helicopter pilot.
Oh, there you go.
That.
There you go. You graduated to something a little bit more.
Right.
So. We were going into our silver anniversary. No one had heard of us, or very few of us heard of VAFF. And I'm thinking, by now, at least all of Canada should know about VAFF, right?
I think so, yeah.
Right? And so my goal is, okay, I really want to work at getting VAFF known. Not just within our own backyard, but across Canada and globally, right? And so that was my goal. So my thing was, how do I go about doing this? So at the time when I joined, we had an executive and committee of about 45 people.
Wow.
Right.
That's huge.
Atlanta.
Yeah.
And our programs were always 4 days in person. So we had the opening gala night, opening film, and then 3 full days of screening, and then the Sunday would be the closing. And that's when the last screening would happen, and if there's any award winners for certain categories, they'd have people coming down to the stage, like at International Village, right at the bottom of the page. And that's how it was always done. So when the pandemic happened, we all had to move virtually. So that allowed us to expand the number of days for the festival, because we were just screening and nothing else. But it also allowed us to reach across Canada. So we did that. So when I came on board, I thought, why not take both and merge it and do a hybrid festival? So as a result, we went from a 4-day in-person to an 11-day hybrid festival.
Yeah.
So we still did the 4 days in person. And then on top of that, I thought, watching those filmmakers coming down to the bottom of the theater and accepting their awards and all that, I felt we weren't really doing them justice. And what I mean by that is, these films that they produce, as you know, a lot of sweat, blood, and tears go into it. And the number of people that are involved to produce anything, no matter how short a film may be, it's phenomenal. And the number of hours that you have to put into it, between pre-production to post-production, there's so much that's involved. And I thought, when a filmmaker or the cinematographer or whoever it may be, or the actor, is given an award, they should really be celebrated.
Yeah.
And so I thought, you know what, let's do an awards ceremony. dedicated to them. And so it was a bit challenging because not only are we all volunteers, VAFF is a non-for-profit organization. So what that means is, how do we get our money? Well, we get money by groveling to the government, right? To sponsors and whoever else would sort of listen to our story and is willing to contribute. And so that takes a lot of time. And so it's not someone else outside that's doing that for us. We're all doing that. And so I thought, okay, I want to really do this and make this a go. And because it was our 25th year, we did have a lot more support from other, partners and sponsors and all that. So we were able to do that. Mm-hmm. And so last year we had the official awards ceremony called the Ovation Awards, and it was held at the Hollywood.
Right.
And for me, I love the venue because it's like, how appropriate is it?
Beautiful place.
Right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's very expensive, so we couldn't do it again.
Yeah.
So we did that, and then this year I really wanted to carry that concept forward, and the board was behind me, so we continue that. Next year I'll have bigger plans.
There you go.
Yeah. So in the process last year of sort of visualizing all this and how I could change and streamline, and that's sort of been my key word all along, is as much as we're all volunteers, we need to organize it in such a way that if someone steps away, that there isn't that much of a setback.
Sure.
Right? And so the only way to do that is to run it like a business. Mm-hmm. And so we went through the process of recruiting. By the time we were done, I think we had about 90 people.
Wow.
Yeah, in the executive committee.
Wow.
Yeah. And these weren't just anyone off, whoever wants to as a volunteer. It was like these people were very specific in terms of their skill set. So we went through an interview process. Like we went through it just like a normal job interview.
That's great.
Right?
That's really good.
And so especially at the higher end, where there were director roles, we not only had the initial interview, there would be a follow-up interview, and then the board would get involved to do the final say. And so we went through the process, had people in place. But like I said, it's a volunteer position, so it's very challenging to keep everybody.
Oh, yes.
Right? And so there's been turnovers in areas that ideally we don't want turnovers in. And so we're constantly trying to fill that gap. I've expanded the programming department. Whereas before we'd just have a group of people and they'd all be involved in watching everything. Yeah. My thought was, human nature, yes, we tend to be biased. That's just the way it works. And I just wanted to sort of reduce the bias in a way. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is if I really like something or dislike something right from the get-go, that's going to come through. And if I have a say and I just don't want this happening, I'm going to be pushing against it.
Sure.
So I thought if we break down the programming department, one for short and one for feature, so because some people are more specialized in that way anyway, and then have a director in both parts so that they're sort of in charge of that department, and then within the department have general programmers who would have all the films that come in, because the way it works is we have the submissions coming in through Film Freeway.
Yes.
Right, and then we do have some that we get curated depending on what the buzz is and all that. First of all, when it comes to the Film Freeway, it has to meet our mandate. And what do we mean by the mandate? So one is, what is our concept or theme for the year? And then the other one is we have ours, because our platform's not very big, we could only accommodate certain countries. So as much as we're the the Vancouver Asian Film Festival, and Asia is so big, right?
Yeah.
We can't include all of that, every single country. So if you look on the Film Freeway submission, it has a list of countries that would qualify. Right. So we have to ensure that qualification is met.
Yeah.
Right. And so when we say country, it also means the people that are the key stakeholders within those films have to be of the Asian diaspora. Right. Of those countries and all that. So they go through the preliminary process that way. And then once that's passed, it goes through the general programmers. They get to see, they select or whatever, and then certain things get passed on, certain things don't make the cut.
Right.
So the second round, if you've seen it, you don't get to see it again. Right? So a new set of eyes view it. And so there's another grading. And then that gets passed on to the third stage. And at the third stage is the directors and the senior advisors that get involved. And then we go through it and determine what happens.
So now, I've looked at that program, and I've seen all the, I don't know how many.
There were 98 films in that one.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It looks like at least 100 films.
But we had 436 submissions.
And so for that third round, those people watch everything.
So within the third round, we still have it compartmentalized to shorts and features.
Right.
Yeah. So
Okay.
So we don't see all of it. What does end up happening is if there are some that are sort of borderline, right? Then other people from within the advisor and director role, will get involved and get that.
Does your group, and I guess you tell me whatever you want to talk about for this is fine with me. Do you find yourself thinking, well, we need to represent Nepal? Do you find yourself saying we need to represent Mongolia, or we need to have somebody there from that? You must have that debate.
No, well, so what we want to do is we want those films from it's open, right? So if it's submitted and it's from a place that we've not seen, we're very excited.
Right.
Right. And we want to give that particular film a fair shot at it.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day,
still got to be a good movie. Yeah.
Exactly, because we can't be showing it for the sake of showing it.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Because our platform is not just about if you're of Asian diaspora, you get to show it. Well, we want to show that the Asian diaspora has the talent. Right.
Yes.
So we want to bring the quality as well.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a bit of a fine balance, and then on top of that, some of the films may be really good, but if it has a political undertone, we have to take it out. We just can't do it because we're a film festival. We don't want to play politics. Right. So we try to stay as neutral as possible.
And are you guys? To what extent is VAFF a competitive? There are Ovation Awards. Mm-hmm. How does that work?
Well, I don't know if I would use the word competitive. I mean, what we are sort of competing for are the films to be brought into our festival. And what ends up being a bit of a challenge is there's so many festivals that happen throughout the year, but very close to our festival as well.
Yes, that's right.
Lots.
Yeah.
And of course, if you're a filmmaker, really, you want to go where the name is known. So, for example, VAFF is known, TIFF is known, Real Asian is known, the Whistler Film Festival is known. Mm-hmm. So you want to go for, you want your name associated with the festival that's known. So this is where I want to make the change, and that I want VAFF to be known, that people are going, hey, VAFF has made its mark, associating my name with them. Gives me that much more credibility, and it gives me the opportunity for other film seekers to see me.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
And so that's what the goal is. So in terms of competitive, what ends up happening is that certain films that have already been screened we're vying for, and then of course we're in a bit of a dilemma in that we have to judge whether it's been overexposed, that we're not going to get the audience.
Yeah.
Or alternatively, it's some of the films, if they've submitted to certain films, depending on the region, they can't accept both.
Yes, right.
So they'll have to say, no, I'm sorry, we can't do it. And then they back out of it.
Yeah.
And so it is very challenging. We're noticing that more and more it is getting more challenging, just because I think until just prior to the pandemic, a lot of the Asian films were sort of being submitted specifically to places like VAFF or Real Asian, unlike now, because VAFF has opened up its sort of, roster or whatever you want to call it, to be more inclusive of all type of films. Right. So a lot of the Asian films are now being submitted to VAFF as well, right? And so that's a competition for us. Yeah. So it is, we collaborate with them, we work with them, but it's just when it comes down to things, because it's also if the film has a distributor of some sort, then there's also all those things that are associated with it. So
and the distributor is probably lobbying for them to submit to this festival or that festival.
Of course.
They've got a stake in the what festival goes where.
Of course. So that makes it very challenging. So these are all the things that we have to work with. And having volunteers, it's very, very challenging, because not only to keep them, but to get them. right?
Yeah.
Because it is, and screening, oh my gosh, the number of hours, the total number of hours at the end for the shorts, I believe, ended up being 300 something.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It just,
Yeah.
tremendous,
Huge.
tremendous number of hours. And so for them to sit there and watch all these, it's really, really hard.
Back in the old days, when you were a child, I was a juror for the Geminis.
Oh, okay.
And it was, people were very sort of just stupid about how they went about these things, because first off, there was a fee, right, and the fee was it would be a Canadian show, and the fee was $500.
Wow.
To send in, or something like that. It was $350, $500 to send in for best supporting actor, or something like that, right? So nobody sent in anything.
Right.
Nobody submitted anything. And every now and then, some poor actor, would think, I need some publicity, and they would scrape together the money. They submit themselves, and we would get. This is before we would get a videotape, a VHS tape. And you don't know this person. You don't know them. There's no headshot that has come with the tape.
Right.
It's Steve Miller,
right,
in the role of Bob in The Beachcombers.
Okay.
And you put and you're there with two other jurors, and they don't know Steve Miller, and you put the thing in there, and you're fast forwarding past Bruno Gerussi and Jackson Davies and everybody, and you're looking for somebody that you don't know, and that's probably going to be Steve Miller, and you're just guessing.
Oh my goodness! Wow.
And sometimes you couldn't tell.
Right.
And you would say, well, we can't vote this person.
Oh
we can't give them the award. We don't even know who it is.
Wow.
We don't know which person it is.
Right.
It was so goofy, and that happened all the time.
Wow.
And you would sit there and spend hours doing this, going through these tapes. The essentially anonymous tapes, or it would be in some movie you had no idea what this movie was.
Right. That's very challenging.
Crazy.
Well, so what ends up happening with us is that our programming department goes through the entire process in terms of, like you said, the program guide.
Yeah.
So they select, they pass on the films that they think qualifies. As I said, at the third stage, the advisors and the directors get involved, and we determine what should stay and what should go, or alternatively, some things that have been missed, we go back and have a look, or things like that. So we try to, because we hear the buzz and say, something was submitted, and if for whatever reason it didn't make it beyond this, so can we have another look, right? And so we do take another look and try to be as objective as possible. Like as I said, we're human beings. Being objective is not 100%.
It's about what you like.
Yeah, exactly.
And what you think movies should be, and what representation should look like, and all that. And so there's always going to be judgment factors involved. That's good.
But we try. So we try to mitigate that as much as possible. And then the other thing too is the programmers. One of the things that is a requirement. I mean, within the society, you could be of other ethnic background, but for programming purposes, we say that they have to be of Asian descent, or just because we need the lived experience to understand truly what it is that they're watching. And be able to objectively say, hey, this is legitimately representing Asians and stuff like that. Yeah. So we do that, and then what ends up happening is the Canadian films are the ones that are qualified for the awards. So going back to the awards concept, so what happens is those films are then sent off to an outside jury. To determine, so we have various different categories. So we had the best directing category, cinematography, best film, and then we did the best editing this year.
Yeah, that's great.
Right, and then for shorts, we had the same categories. Instead of the editing, we had the best animation. Right? And then
I noticed there were so many animated things.
Tons, and I'm so excited about that. Right, and then with regards to the People's Choice, that's literally the People's Choice. They get to vote whatever they watch. Right. So that within that, there's best performer, best film, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So the Canadian ones end up going to a juror, and they evaluate. So they watch everything and they put a grading. right? On a scale of 1 to 10, what they thought.
Yeah.
And then once that's done, they all submit. So they don't know who's doing what judging. So there's no discussion amongst them at all.
Right.
It gets all submitted back, and then I sit down and I transfer all the information and tabulate all the numbers,
Yes.
and then we get the average, and then based on that we do that.
Yeah.
So that's how those category of winners are selected. In terms of the we have a different category of the most impactful that was sort of created by the director, the board rather, and the president, and those are more of a legacy type, right? So the most impactful performer, the most impactful TV series, or the most like Lisa Liu was there, right? And so she was the game changer for the industry, and so these people that have made a huge impact on the industry. So those people, it's a discussion of certain names are proposed and brought forward, and then we decide what and who would be the most appropriate for that. Right. So, last year we did Squid Games for a TV series only because it was so front and center around the world.
You couldn't ignore it.
Exactly. Exactly. And then this year, we decided to be a little bit more like sort of our own backyard in that, Kung Fu, for example. It's shot here. It's an American production, but it's shot here.
Yeah.
And we thought, it's been around. It's the original Kung Fu movie versus what is now, but the fact that they're casting legitimate Asians and all that, right? We decided that would be the way to go. So this is how those categories are done. And so in the most impactful award categories, there is no monetary award. It's all just the trophy. In the Canadian features and Canadian shorts, there is a monetary award, but that's based on, the funding that's given to us through different organizations that are specifically set aside for awards. I already had a degree.
Yeah.
Right? And then because I sort of kiboshed my mom's dreams about me going back to Korea and marrying, a Korean and doing the sort of
getting a PhD in home ec.
Yeah, exactly. And being the dutiful wife, she sort of gave up that thought. And then so when this came about, she's like, wow, it must have been meant to be.